Welcome to the Super Mania Show. I am your host, Catherine McCord, and I have a very special guest with me today. I'm going to bring her on without any further ado because I think we need all the time we can possibly get with this wonderful woman. We have Dr. J with us today. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I love you. Have so much energy in the morning. That makes me happy.
You say that all the time. And I was just like, I did not grow up as a morning person. But when I became an educator, I realized that working with children and families every morning, I had to switch that. So yeah it's a revelation.
That's true, because kids, when they wake up, they're like, hello. Like, let's go. Let's do this.
Some of them, yeah.
Oh gosh, well, that's true too. I have my niece and nephew are kind of different that way. Is one of them will wake up and just be like, bing, 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 and then the other one's like, okay, give me a minute. I need my coffee. She didn't really get coffee because she's 9 or 10, but just is like, hold up, give me a second here. So, and good morning, Pamela. Pamela, say good morning to us. So first of all, if you're new to the show, this is the Super Mania Show. We are here to talk about everything neurodiversity and mental health. Neurodiversity just means that you process information differently. It's really that simple. Very, very broad definition. So there's a lot of us out there. And Dr. J, and I run a recruiting and consulting firm with kind of a specialty in working with the neurodiverse community. And then I have an HR technology that removes bias and is neurodiverse friendly. So that's who I am. Dr. J, tell us about you.
I am Dr. Jerri Johnson. I am a 20 plus year educator. I have held the positions or had the honor of holding the positions of classroom teacher at various grade levels, all the way to district office administration. I've also been a director of education for a nonprofit in the school district that I grew up in and graduated from in St. Louis, Missouri.
That's cool.
Yes, it was awesome to go back, give back. I worked in the school district maybe 4 times. That's a whole different story. Why?
Another show, another time. Right. That's okay.
But currently I'm working on consulting. I just had a book come out and some other things.
Yes, and we are going to talk about the book at the end of the show because I think it's very exciting and I'm super, super stoked about it. So let's dive in because today's topic is education, is neurodiversity in education.
Yes, and I really wanted to know what. I was trying to collect my thoughts about it, and then it's so much, it's so broad.
Yes.
And I just kind of wanted to know what's most important to you to kind of focus on right now.
So this topic hits home for me because I've had kids in my family, friends, children, all of that in special education. And I had an experience, my husband and I both, we're always being recruited for the gifted and talented programs, which we're both very smart and talented people. I'm not going to lie. We're pretty awesome. But thank you.
If he chose you or you chose him, I agree.
Yeah. Either way. Yeah. Just, I latched onto him like a leech, really. It's kind of that's a whole other story. That poor man, he had no choice. But looking back, we could have just as easily, because we are neurodiverse individuals, but nobody realized that because our particular neurodiversities weren't overly talked about in that time frame when we were growing up. Mm-hmm. We could have just as easily ended up in special education and labeled with a disability.
Absolutely. And
that's just weird to me that people, and there's a stigma with special education that upsets me. So from your perspective, I want to start off with your perspective from your infinite years of wisdom and your just, and your excitement for education. To you, what should special education be and what is it actually? And is there a difference between those two things?
It's a huge difference.
I figured that.
If anyone wonders, I sit on my exercise ball when I'm working at home, so that's
good for you.
If it bothers you, I apologize. I will stop every now and then.
We embrace all quirks on the show, all individual needs on the show. So roll with it.
Right. Okay, so special education, what it should be in my mind is exceptional education.
Mm,
So when I say exceptional, I mean in the purview of you have a general education, curriculum, except this child needs this,
right.
you
Yeah.
know, or you have, sports that kids are doing, except this child needs an
Right.
accommodation or a modification in this way. So when I
Right.
say exceptional education, I think we need to change the lens.
Right.
We're doing things for a general education, which is supposed to be the normal child, which I don't know what is these
I don't
days.
either. All
Um,
kids are so different. Yeah. I don't know what
right.
that even
And
means.
these standardized tests, and I don't know what standard whose standard it is or whether I even want to fit into it. I probably don't. But it's I think we should change it to exceptional
Yeah.
education, not special in a way that it's got a bad connotation to it
It
now
does.
in the field of education. And kids are separated and due to, mind you, some of our students or some of our scholars do need a different type of environment.
Right.
That's perfectly fine. I mean,
Right.
we get it in business, we get it in, nonprofit organization, we get it everywhere else. We get different types of environments. Why is it
Mhm.
so bad in education that our
Right.
scholars need an alternative setting?
Right. Right. And that's what kills me is I'm going, everybody has different needs and wants and all that. Why is that negative? And for instance, so you'll notice I always do the show with my headset on. And I've been asked about,
I like it because it's Princess Leia.
thank you. It's so funny. I either get that or airplane pilot. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good with either one. Either one's cool. For me, it's a sensory issue. So I can, just if I'm in any sort of manic state, during one of my cycles, I can get really overstimulated really quick. I can also get distracted. I do not have ADD, which is going to sound like I do, but I don't. I can get very easily distracted by things. And so I wear this and that's just what I do. And it's okay. And it's just something different. And what's interesting to me is, like, to your point, if a child does something different, oh, they're bad. Like, oh, they want to bounce on a ball instead of instead of sitting perfectly still. How dare you? You can't be productive that way, child. What's wrong with you that you want to wiggle as a child? Jeez, And they're just given these labels. A friend of mine recently posted that her son was diagnosed with autism, and everybody's, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm going, you're sorry about what? This child is perfectly fine. What is wrong with you? And so I hopped on it. I was like, I know that this is going to make things different than what you expected as a mother. I know that this is going to be a different parenting challenge for you, but congratulations. Your kid is going to be awesome. And he's going to do all these really great things. And, and here are some of the typical superpowers that autistic people can have. And I shared an article where Harvard Business Review was calling the autistic community, talking about them having superpowers. And I was like, why were these people telling her I'm sorry? There's something wrong with her son. He doesn't have cancer. Like, what?
Exactly.
What is that?
Exactly. I mean, they think that. I mean, they give the. I love the comment that was just said that STEM programs are different in each school district.
Yes, they are.
So true. I mean,
yes.
They are very. There's no one that's the same. Going from St. Louis to the country of Texas. Yeah, I noticed a lot of differences. So yes,
very, very different. And hi, Jess. Jess is one of my favorite neurodiverse superheroes. Howdy, lady.
Yes. So, but it's like the so-called disability tag is doom. Like you're doomed if you have a disability. I mean, I think we all, in some way, shape, or form, are neurodiverse. My twin sister and I were in gifted and talented programs, and just like you. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, there's other kids that are doing the same or better. Like, why are they not in here? And why are there not more kids in these programs? But I have worked in predominantly urban school districts.
Okay.
Urban now is considered to be predominantly of color.
Yes, that is true.
Of color,
That is true.
So, that is where my perspective is coming from. Someone else may have a different one. That is the beauty in this world and different people.
Yes.
But I'm speaking from my perspective and my experience.
I will say, it's interesting because I have spoken to special ed teachers and such in predominantly white schools, and they have very similar takes now. And to Deborah's point, right? They're all different. All the programs are different. There was one that I spoke to her, and she was saying, we're working on making it less of a stigma and just catering to each unique child's needs. But most of them are having okay, we're doing our best, but there's totally a stigma attached to it. And there are kids in here that don't need to be here. For instance, as I shared with you before the show, my father-in-law teaches special education. And he told me, he said he had kids in there that the only reason they were in there is that they had behavioral issues because they would fall asleep in class. Well, the reason they were falling asleep in class is that they had a full-time job and parental duties to the younger siblings, and they have school. And so the kid is freaking tired.
Right.
They're tired.
Duh.
And and I would be too, no judgment on those kids. And you know what? Power to them, because what an extraordinary young person to work full time and go to school full time and take care of their younger siblings. That's extraordinary. Kudos to those children. And it really kills me.
Yes. And there are other things that you can do. A 504 plan would address, some of the support.
So what is that? For those of us that don't know, what is that?
So the 504 plan really address things outside of, like being tested for a disability that you cannot control.
Right.
So it's circumstances that are surrounding you at that time. It could be homelessness. It could be a child that's with a foster family that's not, doing well. I mean, it could be just different things that, they may not test for a disability, but there are extenuating circumstances going on at that time. And it's not something that most of the time an IEP, an individualized educational program, I mean, for, a special education student sticks with them through their educational career. A 504 does not have to.
Well, and I want to ask about that too, because the individual education plans, the IEPs, why are, and I know that not all school districts keep them the same, but why do so many of them stay exactly the same? I've spoken to teachers that go, this kid doesn't even need half this stuff anymore. Like, why are we still doing this? What's going on with this?
Do you want the politically correct answer?
No, just shoot straight. Let's just do it. Just be fully honest.
Because people don't want to update them. People don't want to do it.
But
and I'm not going to put that on. It's not on anybody, because as a school principal, it was my job to monitor,
right,
IEPs, what kids were doing, sit in on those IEPs if I had time. A lot of times I didn't. In Texas, you have to, as a school principal, lead the IEP. So, it's a monitoring issue throughout the school,
right,
in the district. So
right,
it's not any one person, but as they circulate through the grade levels, they should be attaining some of those goals. They should drop off, and then if there are any more, new goals should come on.
Right. And I think I wonder, and tell me if I'm just completely off base with this, but I feel like part of the reason that this happens is that schools tend to be, at least in my experience, very understaffed. And there are not enough people, whether it's teachers, whether it's support staff, whether it's administrative staff, there's not enough. There's just not. And teachers have so many kids to a classroom, so many, that you just have to stop and think, you can't give everything to them, because they also need to have a life too. Like, you can't have a teacher that spends 24/7, which a lot of them do anyway, by the way. you can't expect that. So I do want to be very clear that when I say when I'm talking about this problem, I'm not faulting the teachers. I'm not faulting, just like you, I'm not faulting any one individual. I think it's a systematic problem.
It is.
I think the system is broken. These kids are not getting, and just as I talk about in the workplace, people need individual plans for everything. Different types of training are effective for different people at any level of life. Different types of needs, like you with your bouncy ball, me with my headset. It's different needs for different people.
Yes.
And so everything should be different. I hate the standardized test too. That's a whole other episode of a whole other show. That's just, that's, whew. I guess we got to soapbox so quick, but there is nothing, what we're kind of learning, I think, as we grow as humans, is there's nothing standard.
No.
Right? It's just everybody's got their own different things. So I had an idea years ago, and I would talk to, I have a lot of educators in my family, and I would talk about, I would love to see a system where as kids grow and we learn what they need and want, that they're divided up not by, oh, you're smart, you're not smart, you're this and that, but to say, hey, you're really gifted here, and you're really gifted here, and you're really gifted over here, like art, history, science, whatever it is, and kind of lift them up in their strengths. And yes, help them with their weaker areas too, but lift them up in their strengths and say, this is great that you're this way. And here's all the things that you can do in your uniqueness that will make you successful. Instead, it's, oh, you flunk at this. Exactly. You can't do these other things that you're actually good at because you stink over here. Well, that's okay. Everybody has something they stink at. Everybody. I am a terrible artist. I cannot draw. I mean, stick figures are almost beyond me. It's bad. My stick figures come out crooked. This is not a joke. It is very bad. It is very, very bad. But, there's other things at which I'm really strong.
Right.
And I think that's true for everybody. And it's
and I think
really,
the staffing issue is definitely, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. I think I trailed off in my mind. It's okay. Go ahead.
I think that the staffing issue is definitely, especially since COVID come to light, in the special education realm, it depends on the district once again, and it depends on the
of course.
Some districts hire their own special education teachers and they place them where they want to place, which means that a special education teacher, based on what their specialty is, can be moved around from school to school and never feel like they have a school home, a school family. Right. Other districts, they contract out special education teachers that really are not a part of the district, but are trying to fit in to a staff culture that they usually don't know anything about.
Yes.
So, they are dealing with not just, servicing children, but they're also dealing with the relationship building.
Yes.
And the getting to know the parents and the staff and just trying to feel a part of a community.
Right.
And you come to work every day and it's like, I don't know these people, right. Get to know.
Like, who are you?
Right. As an administrator, you have to try to bring those people into the fold and make them a part of the community.
Right.
The administrator to build that culture,
yes.
build that climate of we're a team, regardless if you work for X, Y, and Z, or if you work for the district, we are a team. You're servicing. These are our kids.
Right. Absolutely. Kids. Yes. Ours. I like that. Community feel. And I think too, that would help with the humanizing aspect on the special education or individual plan, as we're both advocating for, type education, to have because if they're yours, you see it as a different way, right? It's kind of ties back into that. And I think with kids, I see kids all the time and they all have their different little strengths, and they blow you away. And so when you're looking at this and you're thinking, okay, so this kid has autism, and so maybe this kid doesn't want to raise their hand and say things. Mm-hmm. Maybe this kid needs to be more kinetic than auditory. Maybe and then somebody over here with ADHD, maybe instead of putting this kid in a chair, we ought to give them a yoga ball so that way, and a fidget spinner, so that way they can pay better attention and do better, and have different classes for those kids that steers into their learning style. Okay, I'm just going to throw this on out there. Our country does not spend enough on education, and it's gross. We spend so much money on stupid programs. I've gone through our country's budget. Yes. I found money for all the things I want to do. What's irritating me is that Congress can't seem to find that money. So yeah, I'm that weird. I actually go through the country's budget like a wacko. So with these neurodiverse persons, because it's so cool. Everybody's got their different, well, I call them quirks. That's just my term. I don't want to be offensive to anybody. That's the term that I use to define the things I do. Like when I'm manic and I do this all the time, it looks like I'm waving at people. Or with my epilepsy, it's not epilepsy, but it's related. You'll see tics and it looks like I'm trying to pick you up. I'm always having to tell people, like, I'm not winking at you, I promise. This is a facial tic and there's nothing that I can do about it. But to look at these things and just go, this is just a difference. And that's not a big deal. So like you said, it's an accommodation. You don't need a label. You don't need to be put, have a brand that's going to stick with you. Let's be honest, for life. Because once you get going with that, it's just stuck. It's just there. And it's in their heads and it makes them feel bad. I've talked to person after person after person that was told I was teased because of this. I was told I was less than. My teachers even told me I couldn't do things. Yes. And it's because they were told. So it's not their fault. They didn't know. But now we have the education. Now we know that these kids are not dumb. They're not incapable. They can do it. So what's the solution? Because the government, let's just be honest, is completely useless and is never going to give us enough money for these things.
No, that's true.
And we can't put it all on parents. Parents, you better be involved, by the way, with your kids. Be involved. Do a better job. But what are some solutions for these kids that aren't dumb, that are actually very remarkable, to get that special attention that they need?
I think one thing is, and what I will say about educators today, is that they are some of the most innovative people that you will ever meet.
Yes, they are.
When you talk about differentiation, of lessons, and you talk about accommodations given in classrooms, when you talk about different learning styles, I have had teachers that will try everything that they possibly can with students and will not give up. So I think we're going in the right direction in-house.
Okay.
In the schools, I think that we have teachers, administrators, educators as a whole that want to do what's right for each individual child. They try their best. The planning, I was a principal that was more concerned about your small group and individual planning than I was this freaking 5-page lesson plan that the district
right.
That doesn't do anything for me. And now you got states asking teachers to write lesson plans for a whole year. What? Like that doesn't even make sense when you don't even know what kids you're going to have in your class. Girl, listen.
She's like, I have things to say about this.
It blows my mind. Just the level of ignorance, like people really not knowing what goes on inside schools. But I think for districts to start to look at what they are already doing and grow upon the good.
Yes.
Of the kids that are actually growing in certain types of environments would be the start. And districts doing what they need to do for kids.
Yes.
I understand that funding is not always the best and things like that, but districts doing what they need to do for kids and kids being first. And I think that most educators are like that.
They are. And I do want to, again, I want to make very clear that teachers understand we are not bashing you teachers. We are here to support you. We feel like you are just really underappreciated in a lot of ways and definitely undercared for in your professions. So Jess just commented about something that I was leading up to is I feel like changing the education for teachers, right? Changing it to, because changing it because they're kind of taught fit it all in one box, right? And then they come out and they're like, well, that's not going to work. And then they've got to kind of start their education all over again. And that's just dumb. So fix the education for teachers and say, hey, when you have a student doing this, here's something that you might want to think about. If you have a kid that's wiggling, give them a yoga ball. If you have a kid that's always spinning their pencil around, give them a spinner. And then they'll be able to pay better attention to you. I taught
as an adjunct in St. Louis, and to learn what the pre-service teachers that were in my classroom about to graduate did not know,
right,
was very enlightening.
Right.
And we are not setting our pre-service teachers up for success in classrooms. We really need to look at when businesses and school districts are saying the people that we're getting are not prepared, they're telling the truth.
Yeah, they're not just saying it.
People in there that are practitioners to teach these pre-service teachers, and not just people who talking about theory that ain't been in a classroom in 5 years.
Right.
That does not help them to be successful.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Get people that know what they're talking about. And also, I would personally like to see a lot more psychology being part of the curriculum for teachers, a lot more understanding about the different types of neurodiversity that they're going to see. Right. Mm-hmm. This is what this actually is versus what the media has taught you. This is what this is, and a little bit of that social worker aspect too, right? Because like my father-in-law has experienced, you're going to have those kids that have crazy home life and it's not even necessarily their parents' fault. Sometimes stuff just happens, right? Exactly. But they need somebody who's going to understand where they're coming from. So I feel like it would better prepare teachers to to your point, have actual like working teachers work with them. And then B, to have more of the emotional intelligence taught and that more of the psychological aspect taught to them, because I feel like that's going to be, it's not that hard to teach a kid 2 + 2 if you're at the younger levels. I know it gets harder as it gets older, but it's that part's not that hard, but it's, connecting to them and being able to understand what they need. And that's really, I would think the hardest part about being an educator is connecting to each one of those little needs.
It is. The building relationships piece is huge, and the socio-emotional part is big, especially now, post-COVID. And they do need to know how to identify certain behaviors as they're not necessarily being defiant. And none of their behavior is against you. You personally haven't done anything to them. Hopefully not.
Hopefully. Yeah.
None of their behavior is against you. They are reacting to things in the way that they know how to react. That's all to it. And they need to be taught a different way to respond to frustration, to anger, to being told no is a big thing, so we need to stop taking it personal when we see certain behaviors come out. It's more about the child than it is about what you're doing.
Yes. And to your point, so in the neurodiverse community, a lot of times people have what I was calling earlier the little quirks. And again, that's just my term. And for instance, a child, I've had people say like, oh, this kid just keeps doing this over and over again. There might be a reason. For instance, I know a man who has to untie and retie his shoes because if they're not perfectly tied because of his neurodiversity, he can't focus. But once it's fixed, then it's perfect and he can focus and he can like fly through things at lightning speed. And it's really great. Mm-hmm. People have different little needs. So there might be a reason that they're doing that. If there's a little girl fidgeting in her seat, I have a teacher that has a story about how she found a whole other world that needed to be taken care of there with that little girl. Probe, take the time. And again, educators not bashing you at all, but we're just saying these are the things that lead to success as in the teaching environment. And with special education too, we have to remove the stigma. And I don't like the name either. The name is so weird. It's a very bizarre. I like the exceptional education is way better. There's all different terms. And really and truly, I'd like to get rid of gifted and talented stuff too, and just make it, we're steering into every kid's strength, because every kid has something that they're good at. Maybe they're great with their hands. Maybe they're great artistically, and that should be celebrated. By the way, quit telling your artist kid to get a real job. Cut it out. Cut it out.
They love. Exactly.
Yes, they will make money. They'll be fine. They'll figure it out. They'll become a graphic artist or something and do well. Stop telling them that. Embrace the difference. Steer into it, not away. That's what I always say, even at the professional level. That's what I'm teaching people, and it works. And by the way, Hewlett-Packard released a fantastic study on their program for neurodiversity that's showing that they have, when they steer into the neurodiversity instead of away, and they let everybody be themselves and give them whatever thing makes them the most comfortable, let them do however they need to do, 30% higher productivity than the correlating departments.
Oh, I believe it.
I was like, what a novel idea. If you make somebody comfortable, they're going to do better at work. Or in school or wherever. Yeah. If you want them to do better, let them be them. Just a thought, just a novel idea. And by the way, there's study after study after study that proves the importance of that. If you Google it, go to Psychology Today, a few others as well. You'll see it makes it more effective for people when they can be themselves.
I've seen it in schools. I mean, you give teachers what they need to teach. And I say, teach it however you need to.
Just roll with it.
You do you.
Yeah.
I might have some feedback for you. I might have some questions. But you know what? I want you to be who you are and the teacher that you are. This is what we need to accomplish. How we get there, that's you in your classroom with your kids.
There you go. And they all are unique.
And they
so
lean
good luck.
Into it. Exactly.
And I can't
lean into it.
And teachers, I just want to put this out there. If you put me in a room with 30 children, I would cry an hour into it. I don't cry. I would be in tears on the floor in a ball, rocking back and forth. I can't do it with that many kids. So kudos to you. But just remember that they have individual needs. And same thing with training in the professional element. If the person's not receiving the information, you're not telling it well, is the most likely explanation, at least not well for them. How you trained may have worked for other people in the past, but it's not working for them. Change it up, right? Exactly. Einstein's definition of insanity is to repeat the same action over and over, expecting a different result. Change it up. Hello. And government, U.S. government, get your lives together and start giving more money to education. That's it. Their money is there. If you need help with your budget, call me. I got you. So as we wrap up today, Dr. J, first of all, final thoughts.
Neurodiversity is nothing new. It's nothing new for us. What is new is that we're finally beginning to accept that we need to do something different.
Right.
And hopefully that accepting doing something different leads to action. Let's have an aha moment. Let's be aware of it. Let's be honest about what we need to do to change, and let's provide some action on it.
I love that, because I'm all about taking the action to follow up. And I think that you're right. And by the way, people, it's not a small portion of the population. It's almost 30% of the population is neurodiverse. By the by the technical definitions of it. So this is not a small percentage. It's time to realize that we need to do better. And that if we just let people do things the way that they need to do them, we're going to get a lot further, a lot quicker.
Exactly.
Just saying. So as we say goodbye, tell us about your amazing book and where we can find it. 'Cause I'm super, super stoked.
I just released a book. It is called Imagine That, Chronicles of an Urban School Principal. You can find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's just a snapshot of some of the scenarios that I have gone through as a principal in predominantly schools of color.
I love it. I can't wait to have it. I am super stoked. And I'm going to be buying it for the educators in my family too. So they're going to all have to read it too, whether they want to or not. And they will, though. They'll love it. They'll absolutely love it. But thank you, everyone, for watching. Please check out the site, supermaniashow.com. It talks about all the upcoming shows that we have. We have some fantastic, wonderful guests coming up, some really important topics. If you have any questions about neurodiversity, reach out to me. If you have questions about neurodiversity in school, reach out to Dr. J. Thank you very much for being here. Connect with us on LinkedIn, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye. Have a great day.